Well, hi everyone, a very good morning to you. Welcome to a sun-kissed Hockenheim once again for day 2 of this race weekend, which features race 14 for the Porsche Carrera Cup. Championships all done and dusted, so it's all heck for leather as the cars make it to the grid now. It's the last race honours of the year with Christian Engelhardt and Thomas Preining on the front row of the grid, with Dennis Olsen and Nick Yellerly going from the second row of the grid. It will be a phenomenal race. Of course, the mix of A and B classification drivers. The A drivers, of course, pro drivers. And the B drivers primarily made up of gentlemen and amateur drivers as well. It's Wolfgang Triller as the B-class champion. The A-class champion sealed it in race 1 yesterday, Dennis Olsen. And the rookie champion is Larry ten Voorde, who incidentally will be going from P8 on the grid today. So after 12 of 14 races, Dennis Olsen and Nick Yellerly, the two championship contenders. We're about to set off for the last race weekend. And on board with the Project 1 car. And hard at work inside the cockpit of the Nick Yellerly car then. And there, Dennis Olsen into the hairpin. And as they accelerate out of the hairpin, heading down towards the stadium section of the track. Bad news for Larry ten Voorde, Nick Yellerly P5, but for the incident with Thomas Preining, he would pick up a drive-through penalty. There you can see confirmation of that drive-through penalty. On board with Dennis Olsen then, Engelhardt really pushing very, very hard. So these great onboard shots then from the Carrera Cup. And there you can see Christian Engelhardt slipping through then. And this was for P6 in lap 6 of the race as they make their way around the Parabolica. And Thomas Preining then overtaking Al-Faisal Al-Zubair for P11. But whatever he did, Larry ten Voorde was going to become the rookie champion. And at the finish, Christian Engelhardt with his second victory in 2017. But Dennis Olsen had done enough to become the Porsche Carrera Cup champion for 2017. And there you can see just how delighted he was. And so too was Franz Conrad and the team from Conrad Motorsport, celebrating yet another success for the incredible brand of Conrad Motorsport. So back to our live pictures on Sunday then as the sun shines. It's the longer race for the Porsche Carrera Cup. It is 35 minutes and Christian Engelhardt going from pole position. And it's going to be Thomas Preining, P2 in the Rookie Championship, who will be going from P2. So Christian Engelhardt driving for the Black Falcon team. Alongside me is former Carrera Cup racing driver, though you didn't race for the Black Falcon team, but you do know it now in other categories. It's Alex Torrell. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Dave. Exactly. Black Falcon is one of my team. I'm racing at the moment in my Endurance Championship, when we see Thomas Preining in the picture. Yeah, in a way, when I was racing in 2015, I was racing for Team Project 1, and then I moved into endurance racing with Black Falcon in the last 2 seasons.
So, what is it like for a racing driver? You're on the grid now. It's your final race of the season in this particular championship. All the championships sealed, done and dusted. Dennis Olsen has done enough to seal the championship, and very deservedly so as well, but he was chased all the way by Nick Yellerly, who incidentally will be starting alongside Dennis Olsen. When you get into this position, you've done everything that you need to do, Alex, and this race, then, is it all the pressure off and therefore you're just going out for fun now?
Yeah, it's mainly that it's a feeling when you just did your workout or your homework and you win the championship, just go in the grid, relax, try to enjoy what is driving a race car and take it without any pressure.
Nick Yellerly was chasing Dennis Olsen into the championship, and unfortunately for Nick Yellerly yesterday, of course, he had coming together with Thomas Preining, didn't he? And he picked up a drive-through penalty, and that meant really for Dennis Olsen the championship at that point was assured, wasn't it?
Yeah, we saw the images just before when he was tapping him on the back after corner one, so quite, I mean, fair penalty. And yeah, it's racing, it's close racing. Carrera Cup, we know it's closer than any other category probably, and these things can happen. So, I mean, it's nothing you can control sometimes. A little bit more speed, a little bit less, but it's like it is. And fair also race from Dennis Olsen, who took P2, really consistent and through the whole season. So it's also a fair win on the championship.
He did have a little blip, in my opinion, mid-season, where, you know, after a succession of wins, his form almost seemed to drop away a little bit, and he didn't look quite as quite as consistent as he had done. And for my money, that's when it just allowed Nick Yellerly, who had really got to grips with the car this year, to come closer.
Yeah, exactly. This was a few races. I think it was Sachsenring and Nürburgring where they were where Dennis Olsen lost a little bit of performance, and that allowed Nick Yellerly, who was in his top performance, to come a little bit closer. But as we saw yesterday, championship has been sealed, and Dennis Olsen took everything really good under control. Not feeling a lot of the pressure especially yesterday in the race, making a race without any mistakes, and I think at the end this is important in a championship.
And what's really interesting when we follow Nick Yellerly has been very, very good this season as the cars roar array now on their formation lap. Nick Yellerly, former single-seater star, still racing in simulators and doing lots of simulation work. It took him the best part of a season to get to grips with this Carrera Cup car. You know, from a naive point of view, Alex, there are people like me that think if you're a racing driver, you're a racing driver, and actually if you were on the grid in a wheelbarrow, you could still win a race. But actually, what it proves is just how difficult it is to get the best out of these Carrera Cup cars, because it took Nick a little while to get it all together.
Yeah, this car, the Porsche 991 GT3 Cup, is a really special and really difficult car. I mean, he raced even last season, so it's his second season in Carrera Cup, and that's exactly what you said. It's really difficult car, really complicated. I mean, when I did only one season, and you could feel how tight was the grid and how difficult it was to progress, especially, I mean, with the year I raced was the really high level. But it's like you say, it's everything so close together. You can see now when you look at the grid, the difference on the time, it's 10th, between 2 tenths between P1 and P9.
Extraordinarily talented drivers in the grid. Christian Engelhardt going from pole position, Thomas Preining, Dennis Olsen, Nick Yellerly, Mikael Ammermuller, another former single-seater star, of course, who's into GT racing now and in the Carrera Cup, Christopher Zoechling, Ash Kanani, Larry Tenvorder, David Kolkman, Henrik Skoog. Then we see Tony Wolff, Ryan Cullen, Al Zubair, Gabriela Piana, Walidko, Naken, Wolfgang Triller, who, of course, is the B-class champion, and the rest of the grid. As we can see, Richard Selwyn there from Project One, having a discussion there. Richard Selwyn, of course, another former single-seater engineer rather than racing driver, but, you know, very, very clever engineering talent.
Yeah, it was my second half of the year, so I was in Project One. He came to help us, and this is when he started doing Carrera Cup, came in just from the GP2.
Yes.
So it's UK-based team, iSport, and he's been racing many years in the GP2. So like you said, really experienced single-seater engineer, and now he made his steps into the GT cars with Carrera Cup and some race we did in Super Cup as well.
This 4.574 kilometer circuit, 18 laps. First part of the track really is not quite so technical. You've got the long parabolica up to the pinch point, which is the hairpin. But then it's like the second half of the circuit, sort of the back half of Sector 2 and Sector 3. That's where it becomes more challenging, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. The first sector, it's a little bit more fast corner, which is, with this car, it's quite difficult, especially corner one. You see the cars launching over this sausage curb and all the parabolica down into the hairpin. And then you have this third sector, which is really technical into the stadium, with those bank corner and a little bit change of grip regarding the tarmac. So it's really challenging this racetrack with the Porsche Cup.
Here we go then, the Look at that, and that's coming off the Nick Yellerly car, and that's because he's really pushed the brakes during that formation lap to bring them up to temperature. So it's a long wait if you're on the front row of the grid before the rest of the cars come into grid, and we get the green flag from the marshal at the rear. The grid boxes will all be full of these Porsche cars ready to do battle for 35 minutes. There is the green flag then, and we are ready to race the Carrera Cup Deutschland Race 2, the final race of what has been a remarkable championship year. Championship won by Dennis Olsen, who will be going from P3, and he'll want to take honours in the final race of the year. Let's go racing, it goes green then. Preining and Engelhardt, and Olsen then immediately trying to block out Nick Yellerly from taking the inside line on the second row of the grid. So Nick Yellerly slots into P4. Thomas Preining, though, it is that has got the march on Christian Engelhardt as they go into turn number 2. So the young whippersnapper, if I may say that, Thomas Preining then, who is chasing hard in the Rookie Championship, is leading the race now. It is P1 for him as we see one of the cars run off wide through turns 2 and 3. David Kolkman side by side with Larry Ten Voorde there, the two Project One drivers together around the parabolica now, heading up towards the hairpin. And here comes Christian Engelhardt now on the outside of Thomas Preining. Will try and get underneath the Thomas Preining car now. Preining knows where to put the car, but here comes Dennis Olsen. So Dennis Olsen vying with Christian Engelhardt here for P2. Now, Dennis Olsen will have the inside line for this one, but Christian Engelhardt will have it for the next turn, but it's too late. Olsen has got the job done, so Olsen moves up to P2 already. So it's Preining, Dennis Olsen, and then it is Christian Engelhardt, Nick Yellerly. Still side by side, David Kolkman and Larry Ten Voorde. Larry Ten Voorde, the rookie champion then. And there you can see those two cars, but for the moment, David Kolkman has got the better of Larry Ten Voorde, who slots in behind him. That's the big battle going on for a position further down the order. So Ryan Cullen there in the number 26 car, battling hard with Henrik Skoog. And now, all of a sudden, Christian Engelhardt is under real pressure here from Nick Yellerly. So Nick Yellerly in the all-yellow Project One car dives to the inside of Christian Engelhardt now. Doesn't able to get right alongside on the inside and has to put himself back into that P4 position. But Thomas Preining leading from Dennis Olsen. Now, despite the colours on the Thomas Preining car, which of course carries that BWT livery, it's the same team as Dennis Olsen right behind him, isn't it? Yeah, it's both Team Conrad Motorsport, so 1-2 for Franz Conrad at the moment, and also have remarkable start from Askenani, which is now P5. Oh, we see in the back, I think it's Ivo Valiko having a good save out of the exit of corner number 2. We see all the pack going. We see Armin Müller now trying to have the inside of Christopher Socialin. He does the move, yes. Side by side, he will have the inside line for the next turn. But Zochling is fighting back here. Ammermuller on the outside of Zochling. Then they are side by side, and Christopher Zochling is a hard racer, but so too is Mikael Ammermuller. Oh, we see in the back is taking the chance. It's Kolkman taking the chance to get past, I think, Henrik Skoog. And also trying to take advantage of that is Larry Ten Voorde, and Ten Voorde goes past Henrik Skoog as well. So Henrik Skoog losing out in 2 places there. Here we see Christopher Socialin defending from Armin Müller, and I was saying Ascanani did a really good start passing Armin Müller as well, so now he's in P5 and getting closer to Nick Yellerly. David Kolkman with a lock-up going into that banked corner, but Larry Ten Voorde not able to take advantage of that. Of course, David Kolkman and Larry Ten Voorde are also for the same team, and behind the two of them, you can see trying to make good where possible. Preining leading from Olsen, Engelhardt, Yellerly, Ashkanani, then it's Zochling, Ammermuller. Before we see David Kolkman, who is running in that P8 position at the moment. Henrik Skoog, the one chasing down both those Project One cars at the moment. And Larry Ten Voorde really having to defend here, which is allowing David Kolkman to get up the road. And now on the inside,
It's Gabriele Piana.
Ooh, trying to get past Henrik Skoog there. Gabriella Piana then in the number 4 car, who is currently running P11. This is the battle going on for P10 at the moment. Henrik Skoog in the number 20 car then as they make their way around the Parabolica now. The race still being led by Thomas Preining. Then it's Dennis Olsen P2, Christian Engelhardt, Nick Yellerly, Ashkanani. And there we can see Larry Ten Voorde, who is running in P9. He, of course, crowned the rookie champion. So Gabriella Piana really on the back of Henrik Skoog now, and will try. Oh, as around goes the number 8 car of that's Sagar, isn't it?
It's Sagar, yeah.
Sagar has gone round, but is able to get it going again. It was a remarkable race yesterday, race 1, where there are so many of these cars out there on track. We often see lots and lots of incidents, but actually it was a very tidy race, really.
Yeah, it was quite clean. It was a clean start, no accidents. Only we had the issue with Larry Ten Voorde. And we see now the replay of probably the incident. I got a little bit tapped from Carlos Rivas, and he got turned around. Yeah, it's corner. It's really hard because you are really tight. You are really at the moment going on the power, and if you get just a small love tap.
I was going to say it looked like the tap was tiny and really innocuous, but actually that's enough to unsettle the car.
Exactly, because if you are at that moment going on the power, and this was pretty much the moment where Philip Sauer was going on the power, it helps you to over-rotate your car, and this love tap just make you spin around so easy.
Well, as you said, really impressive drive in P5 at the moment from Ashkanani. That's a very, very good drive, isn't it? A good start from him, and settled in that P5 position. He's splitting Nick Yellerly and Christopher Zoechling at the moment. There is Christian Engelhardt then running in P3. Final podium place provisionally going the way of Christian Engelhardt, but there's still an awful lot of racing to come. Another 15 laps to be done in this Carrera Cup Deutschland race 2 of the weekend. So Preining then rotates the car through the hairpin. And Dennis Olsen is, you know, by virtue of the fact they're 2 Conrad Motorsport cars, he's flashing his lights at Thomas Preining to try and unsettle him and just invite Preining almost to make just a small mistake, which would allow Dennis Olsen to go through. Dennis Olsen, the champion, of course, would like to finish this race by taking the win. Of course, end the season on an abject high. So Coltman locks up then ahead of Larry Ten Voorde and Henrik Skoog. But at the moment, Thomas Preining is not for moving. He's got merely 4/10 on Dennis Olsen in P2. Then it's Christian Engelhardt, who's a further 7/10 behind. There's really nothing between them across the top 3 at the moment. But Thomas Preining is certainly looking pretty concreted where he is, the lead of the field at the moment. P1 for Thomas Preining, P2 Dennis Olsen. They have the final turn to do before they will cross the start-finish line again. Here is the replay of the start. Talk us through this, Mr. Torrell.
Yeah, we see a really good start from Thomas Preining, getting the car launched really well. At the second position, getting the inside line of Christian Engelhardt. Really clean start from everyone. Everyone leaving some space. No bigger crash. Nothing. No one is spinning like yesterday. We saw Thomas Preining, and same here in corner 2. Thomas Preining defending his position, making his car and his elbows as open as possible. In the 9th position, we see Philip Sagar was having some, no, this Peter Schoffen having a big lockup in the back, but nothing also serious. We see again now the replay, everyone respecting themselves, a little bit of a trend, and we see Askanani going all around the outside of Michael Ammermüller.
And you can see that huge lockup from Stefan Rakoff in the 33 car. I mean, that came from a long way back. And presumably at that stage of the race, we're watching the replay of the start, and this was Dennis Olsen getting by Christian Engelhardt. Of course, despite the formation lap, your tyres actually aren't up to temperature, are they, Alex?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if you don't work, that's why we're seeing the car was waiting till the green flag. The Nick Yellerly, the brakes burning. You need to really use the brakes, really warm up the tires, put them, because it's a long time. When we see Wolf-Natan driving a little bit on the grass.
So as Wolf-Natan picked up damage then, he doesn't appear to be making his way back onto the tarmac, does he?
I think he will park the car on the left. Let's see if we see something.
Oh, he just got out, didn't he, and spun it around. Oh, he's made contact. Oh, only with the barrier, or only with the sign then, and then connects with the barrier there. So that's a great shame. Wolf-Natan, another one of the great characters in the B classification of the Carrera Cup Deutschland. And
small contact in the front and the rear. See now again the replay just behind Wolfgang Triller, and what an unfortunate crash, taking that Deutsche Post.
And once you're on the grass, you really are a passenger, aren't you?
Nah, once you're in the grass, especially in this morning where it's always we had this foggy weather, where this drizzle was coming into the racetrack, and it's a little bit wet. You see the tires are already a little bit shiny from the wet.
From the dampness.
Yeah. And we see now Larry Tenforde. When we see Larry Tenforde having to defend from Henrik Skog.
So Larry Tenforde, and now here comes Dennis Olsen then. He'll try and get underneath Thomas Preining, and also going to try and take advantage is Christian Engelhardt, who sets the fastest lap, incidentally, a 1:42.206 from Christian Engelhardt. And Thomas Preining for now has still resisted, as we've got a yellow flag in turn 6, still resisted all the advances. Out there is the number 59 car that has...
yeah. Igor Valiko, with some damage in the front.
Some damage to the front.
Looks like he had some sort of crash with someone, probably. Let's see if we get a replay of that.
Well, we'll see. He's made it back out onto the track, but as you can see...
it's a lot of damage. Let's see if he doesn't have a coolant damage.
Because this is where the cars are a little bit vulnerable, isn't it? Because the radiators are right at the front of the car, aren't they?
Oh, we see he lost the car on the brakes. Oh, those marshals.
Oh,
they have to be a little bit quick. So yeah, these cars are a little bit vulnerable in this front. They have front left and front right. They have the coolers.
That was really interesting because that was on the approach to the hairpin. So do you think the back end of the car just got loose?
Probably the back end of the car got loose, and he got a little bit spun and pointed to the wrong direction. We see now the replay. Yeah, lost it completely on its own.
Good avoidance by those marshals who stepped out of the way just in time, didn't they? So, back to the live pictures then, and the race lead that he's with Thomas Preining. It's Dennis Olsen, who's 3/10 behind him, and then a further 4/10 behind is Christian Engelhardt. And just trying to buy into the battle as well is Nick Yellerly, although they're gapped a bit to Yellerly and Ashkenani, and Christopher Zoechling, of course, who is ahead of Mikael Ammermuller. So the top 10 then, it's Preining, Olsen, Engelhardt, Yellerly, Ashkenani, Zoechling, Ammermuller, Kolkman, Larry Tenforde, and P10 is Henrik Skog. So then Thomas Preining makes his way through, and just holding on to that P1 position, and in fairness has looked pretty comfortable and has not fallen prey to the pressure that's being placed on him by Dennis Olsen at the moment, as we got the pictures there of Larry Tenforde, of course, rookie champion, the Netherlands-based racer, and damn nice chap is Larry Tenforde, and has driven some brilliant, I mean, at Sachsenring, in my opinion, he was outstanding, really, really quick. And at the moment, he's behind his teammate, David Kolkman, who is running in P8. Larry Tenforde is P9, and rounding out the top 10, then it is that Henrik Skog car number 20. So Larry Tenforde then with the familiar yellow colours of the Project 1 team. Same colours, of course, as worn by Nick Yellerly, who is P4 at the moment. And it's just 2/10 between Preining and Olsen. It's really, really close between the two of them. So as a team boss, Franz Conrad must be watching on, and was delighted that his drivers are P1 and P2. Of course, he doesn't want them fighting together, really. And that's the worst scenario for a team boss, isn't it? To see both your cars taken out. As we can see running down the pit lane now, I think it's Ryan Cullen. He was running in P17, but I think Ryan Cullen has stopped the car in the pit lane. So here comes Dennis Olsen now, really tracking Thomas Preining as they head up towards the hairpin. Olsen to the outside, Preining on the inside, which is always the advantageous. And now Preining, he sticks his elbows out and makes sure that he denies Dennis Olsen. But now, actually, Dennis Olsen gets a better exit off the back of the hairpin, and Olsen could go through here. Preining's going to have the inside for this turn, and oh, he just denies Dennis Olsen once again. It was a perfect setup from Dennis Olsen, but he just didn't quite have the traction to stay alongside him, did he?
Yeah, he didn't have the traction. He was running a little bit farther on the outside. Thomas Preining made his car a little bit wider out of the hairpin, and then he was on the outside line for the fast corner, the fast king to the right, and he couldn't make the movement. But that means the competition is really, really close. They are coming closer and closer together, and this also allowing Christian Engelhardt and Nick Yellerly to come into this battle. So we will have a frightening battle for P1 on the race.
You're absolutely right, because as these two are fighting, it does mean that Christian Engelhardt and Nick Yellerly might just be thinking, right, we're going to pounce here when these two start fighting very, very hard. And P3 and P4 could take advantage of the fight that's going on for P1 at the moment between Thomas Preining and Dennis Olsen. So they're split by literally 3/10 between the top 4 places. 3/10 back to Olsen, 3/10 back then to Engelhardt, and then a further 3/10 to Yellerly. And Ashkanani not quite in the battle yet, but he's getting ever closer. And of course, the more you start fighting at the front, it does allow those drivers to get closer to that battle, doesn't it?
Yeah, for sure. If you get the most time, the time you lose while you are battling, you always lose time, and all this time you are losing. It's allowing other drivers to connect and to come closer to you, so you don't start to look anymore to the front. You also have to start looking at the mirrors to defend. We see now Nick Yellerly putting some pressure into Christian Engelhardt, running all around the outside. Will not be enough. Let's say if you get the switchback, no.
And that's what he's trying to do. He's trying to switch back, isn't he? Trying to get on the inside, get better traction out of that hairpin and put himself in the inside line going into this turn, which of course then becomes the outside line for the next turn, which is where we saw the Dennis Olsen overtake fail against Thomas Preining just a few moments ago. So Thomas Preining still leading this. We've got 20 minutes of the race remaining, which is some 10 laps still to do. And Preining has been leading this and really hasn't yielded to the pressure placed upon him by Dennis Olsen. What might be interesting is when we get into the second half of the race, where tyre degradation perhaps begins to play a part. The track temperature at the moment is not at its highest, of course, but nonetheless, you know, the tyres do wear, and that tyre degradation in the second half of the race might make the car a little bit more difficult to handle for Preining.
Yeah, this car always have the tension. They have all the engine in the back. With this new model, it's a little bit more central, but the engine is in the back, all the rear-wheel drive power. So the rear tires is the one who start to struggle after the second half of the race. So let's see how the drivers are really driving, and to see if they are really aggressive on the power and really aggressive on those tires. They might struggle with some tire degradation in the next few laps.
Well, we will see, because we've just about reached a half distance in the race then. The race being led by Thomas Preining. The best of the gentleman drivers in the Class B, it's Carlos Rivas then ahead of Wolfgang Triller and Jorn Schmidt-Stade. They are running P14, 15 and 16. They're all together, those three. And getting also very close together here, Christopher Zoetzling under attack from Mikael Ammermuller. And staying under attack from Dennis Olsen as Thomas Preining, but Dennis Olsen really has had his work cut out here, because Thomas Preining, as Alex has said, just sticks his elbows out and makes it as difficult as possible, and why shouldn't he? He's defending the race lead, and whilst Dennis Olsen is his teammate, it's every driver for himself out there on track, and at the moment, Thomas Preining is not for moving. Whatever Dennis Olsen has thrown at him has not been enough. So again, it's just a matter of 2 or 3 tenths between each and every one of those across the top 4 at the moment. Thomas Preining using the high, wide little bit of banking there across that turn, which perhaps presumably gives you better exit, almost a little bit of a slingshot into the next, the final 2 turns of the track.
Yeah, it's always a little bit of compromise between the speed and the meters you drive. We see Engelhardt running a little bit wide into the entry of the last corner. It's a little bit of a compromise. If you run too long, much faster is the same like if you do a shorter way but a little bit slower. So
sure.
That's always the compromise in this Sachs curve, to find the right point where you do maybe a little bit more meters but running with a little higher speed than if you are maybe too tight and too slow. It's funny to see in the commentary booth just next to us, commentating for the German TV, is Sascha Maassen, the junior.
Yes.
The one in charge of the junior driver, and seeing those drivers, 1-2, fighting together.
Driver coach, isn't he? And Sascha Maassen then, as you say, seeing both Thomas Preining and Dennis Olsen, both, of course, Porsche Juniors, although Dennis Olsen, this is the final Porsche Junior race, isn't it?
Yeah, we'll see what they do with Dennis Olsen next year. I don't know if he will do Super Cup only. He's also fighting for Super Cup, so it's his last race of Carrera Cup, but I think in 2 weeks is Mexico, last round of Porsche Super Cup, which is the international series with the same, they race with the same car, same specification, everything's the same. It's just they run next to Formula 1 all around the world.
And it's often the case, isn't it, that a lot of drivers will run dual campaigns. They'll run in Super Cup and they'll also run in the German Carrera Cup as well. We've seen that with an awful lot of drivers. Philipp Eng is one that springs to mind immediately, good buddies of both of ours.
Yeah, exactly. This is the really good thing of Porsche. You can race with the same car in a lot of places. You can race German Championship, French Championship, Super Cup, in many places. Asia, you can also race this Asia Porsche Carrera Cup. And this allows us to keep adding more miles to you, and this always it's helping to be faster and faster. The more you drive, the better you get.
Of course, it's absolutely crucial. The more track time that you can have, it's only of benefit. Nick Yellerly then running in P4. Behind the car of Christian Engelhardt. Christian Engelhardt, one of the longest serving campaigners in the Carrera Cup. He knows the car and he knows the tracks inside out. And Christian Engelhardt, I would always think if you're a team boss and you wanted a safe pair of hands that is capable of winning races consistently, Christian Engelhardt, like Mikael Ammermuller, is one of those drivers that potentially you would plump for. But I have to say, over this weekend, neither Ammermuller nor Engelhardt actually have perhaps, in terms of battling traffic, have not looked as sharp as they sometimes can.
Yeah, exactly. In one of the points of Carrera Cup, as we were talking in the beginning, they are both doing campaigns in other series, GT cars or GT3 cars, and the car is so specific, so hard that it's much better if you come from another car which has, for example, ABS or more aerodynamic. You always need to adapt back to the Porsche Carrera Cup car, because it's a car where it's really on. You have to be really on the details, really specifically, really technical to drive, and of course you feel this difference.
Everyone tells me, you included, that this car, to get the best out of it, you really do have to hammer this car, don't you? You've got, it's quite a physical car to drive, and drive very quickly.
Yeah, it's physical, but it's also really technical. So it's a lot of difference on the way you brake or on the way you accelerate, the way you turn. What we see now, David Kolkman having some lockups again, allowing Larry Tenford to come closer. Oh no, he got passed by Larry Tenford.
That was, actually relatively a very easy overtake for Larry Tenford. So now you can see how much quicker Larry Tenford actually was than David Kolkman, because he's opened up quite a big gap already. But this is something that you and I often say on the air. It's all very well being quicker, and it's your skill in terms of overtaking, isn't it? Because the sooner you can get that job. I mean, Larry Tenford has now got quite a gap to Mikael Ammermuller of very nearly 3 seconds that he's got to try and make up. And what do we got? 13.5 minutes of the race remaining. Larry Tenford is he's going to do very well to get on the back of Mikael Ammermuller before the end of the race, isn't he?
Yeah, exactly. This is what you're saying. You need to, when you are fast in a car in front, you need to try to pass him as soon as possible, because then if you have a gap like this one, now we see Larry Tenford locking as well, losing a little bit of time. Then you will be really, that will not help for sure. But this is the situation. You try to push because you see the car in front, you want to approach it, but it's a little bit too far away. And we see also, I think it was Thomas Preining having some lockup into the entry of a Mercedes stadium, Mercedes Arena. So this is exactly what you were saying. It's really hard, especially in these. The top times are pretty similar: 142.9, 142.9, 142.9, 142.9, 142.9, 143.1. So there you see how close it's everything together. So to find now 3 seconds in 5 laps, it's almost, I would say, almost impossible.
Interestingly, the cars that are running P10 and P11 at the moment, it's Henrik Skoog and Gabriella Piana, both being warned with regards to track limits and receiving the black and white flag, which means the race steward team are keeping an eye on those in terms of the track limits. The rules are you can take 2 wheels over the white line, but not 4. Is that the case, Alex?
Yeah, correct. They have a white line. I don't know if we get now maybe the opportunity to see the shot of the first corner. There is a white line on the outside of AstroTurf in corner number 1. That means the track limit. So if the drivers run a little bit wider than that white line, we cannot see from this camera shot, they will be warned about track limits. So that's probably what they did. They ran a couple of times over this white line, and race control warned them about track limits.
The black and white flag is merely a warning. It's not a penalty at all, as we get super slow-mo now of Thomas Preining really feeling the pressure now from Dennis Olsen. But to be fair, I've been really impressed with Thomas Preining here. Whatever Dennis Olsen has been able to throw at him in terms of pressure, it has not unsettled that Thomas Preining car. He remains P1, though merely 2 tenths ahead of Dennis Olsen, who is chasing Christian Engelhardt, and Nick Yellerly are having the same problem, aren't they? For Christian Engelhardt and also for Nick Yellerly, what they want is for Olsen and for Preining to get involved in a real side-by-side battle, which would slow them and, of course, would allow Engelhardt and Yellerly to come much more into this game. This was Dennis Olsen then. He was going to try and rotate the car, but on the inside of Thomas Preining to get what Alex calls this switchback position. But Preining is clever here. What he does, he just makes sure that, despite the little nudge, he makes sure that he puts the car in exactly the position which denies Dennis Olsen the opportunity to get to that inside and get underneath that car.
Exactly, Dave. This is really important when you have such a corner like this one, like a hairpin, to try to stop a little bit the car so that the driver behind of you has also, like to say, overbrake the car. We see now this white line on the outside of the green. This is the track limits, as we were talking before. So then to try to deny the other driver to do this switchback, to carry a little bit more entry speed and then be able to undercut your line.
So there is David Kogman and Henrik Skog then. They are running in P9 and P10. Thomas Preining then leading the race and has led the race for a goodly number of laps. We have just 4 laps remaining in this race. And here comes Dennis Olsen once again. And also now here comes Christian Engelhardt. So a little tap there from Dennis Olsen on the back of the Thomas Preining car. But the Thomas Preining car is like welded to the circuit. He is not going to move. So Thomas Preining P1, Dennis Olsen P2, and Christian Engelhardt perhaps now in P3, just beginning to get a little bit frustrated that the race is not coming to him in terms of the fight between Preining and Olsen. And Christian Engelhardt wants to take advantage and try and move himself further up the order. So this in super slow-mo replay then. Here comes that little tap onto his teammate, saying, come on, get the hurry up. And Thomas Preining saying, well, truthfully, friend, you've got to find a way past me, and thus far you've not been able to do so. Christian Engelhardt really exploring the limits of the track there and flying the front of the car. That's a brilliant replay, and Nick Yellerly also doing the same then in the Project 1 car, which is running in P4. So here come the cars then, having completed yet another lap of this 4.574 kilometer circuit here at Hockenheim. The top 4 really have been so close together. Mere tenths between all 4 of them. None of them have been able to unsettle Thomas Preining then. Here comes Christian Engelhardt, just taking a look at the inside of Dennis Olsen. Can just sense over the last lap how Christian Engelhardt seems to be the one that's beginning to get a little bit frustrated and is going to go all out to try and have a go to move himself up from that P3 position to try and take either P2 or P1. Larry ten Voorde then running in P8. Ahead of David Kolkman, but again, Larry ten Voorde is still some 3 seconds down of Mikael Ammermuller.
Having some lockup, losing some times there. Maybe this is allowing the Christian Engelhardt to try any kind of overtaking maneuver. Doesn't look like. Like you say, time is running out. Drivers start to get desperate. Small mistakes starts to happen. So.
And we're back to this tyre degradation because the tyres towards the end of the race are going to offer much less grip than they did right at the start of the race. And Dennis Olsen, of course, he's been in this really difficult position where he's been trying to attack Thomas Preining all the time, but has also had to try and defend also from Christian Engelhardt. So Thomas Preining, Dennis Olsen, Christian Engelhardt, the 1, 2, 3 then with Nick Yellerly just off the podium at the moment, running in P4.
We see the whole Dennis Olsen family watching the race close. So when we see we are going into the 2 final laps of the race, so if everything has to happen, has to be now or never.
So it's now or never then. Thomas Preining, who's done a brilliant job in terms of defending against Dennis Olsen and the other 2 cars behind of Christian Engelhardt and Nick Yellerly. It would be an awful shame to see him lose out now. But you can't help but feel as they head into the Parabolica that this time Christian Engelhardt in particular will have a real go. And there's the Marius Nacken car then, running in P13 in the race.
Christian Engelhardt trying to dive on the inside of Olsen. Nick Yeroli trying to do the same, putting some pressure into Engelhardt. Everything stays really close together, but equally fast. Thomas Preining keeping a higher pace, defending that first position.
On the last lap, Preining was the only one that was doing the laps in the 42s. Everyone else was in the 43s. So Preining has stepped up a bit over the final stage of this race, knowing that that's when the charge and challenge is potentially going to come from the likes of Dennis Olsen and Christian Engelhardt and Nick Jellerly. But of course, they've got to find it to be able to take it to Thomas Preining as well. So there we can see just a little bit further back, Ashkanani and Christopher Zoechling in the number 15 car, running in P6 at the moment. Christopher Zoechling then, another very, very experienced driver who's 7.5 feet tall, is a massive guy, but a great guy and a great driver, Christopher Zoechling.
Not as tall as Ben Barker.
No, Ben is another big guy, another guy that has raced in the Carrera Cup. Yes, you're absolutely right. So Preining, Olsen, Engelhardt, Jellerly, Ashkanani, Zoechling, Ammermuller and Larry ten Voorde then. And now Christian Engelhardt having to defend from Nick Jellerly. We are on the final lap then. It's now or never. As the cars all come through this turn then and head on to the Parabolica for the final time of asking in the Carrera Cup Deutschland for 2017. If Thomas Preining takes this win, it will be well deserved, because he has not really looked threatened for the entire race. Dennis Olsen right onto the back of Thomas Preining, but nothing doing. So off the back of the hairpin, running into the more technical section now. And enthusiasm then from the pit crew of Project One for Nick Jellerly then in P4.
Try to get the last possibility of making a podium this season, push him to do so, but everything looks pretty stabilized unless a big mistake of any of the driver. I would bet it would stay pretty much like this.
Worst thing in the world for you to be saying. However, I think you're right. Around the back turn, 2 more turns to do. Thomas Preining then, who has led his Conrad Motorsport teammate for the greater part of this race, will head towards the timing line, will break the beam, and it will be Thomas Preining that will win in the final race of Carrera Cup for 2017. Preining from Olsen, from Engelhardt, from Jellerly, the top 4. Ashkanani will finish ahead of Christopher Zoechling. Then it's Mikael Ammermuller. Larry ten Voorde will cross the line to take P8. David Kolkman will be P9. And rounding out the top 10 will be Henrik Skoog. And the Project One team down there pretty happy with the performance of Larry ten Voorde and Nick Jellerly and David Kolkman. Al Zubair finishes P12 ahead of him. Gabriela Piana P11. Then it was Marius Nacken. It's going to be Carlos Rivas that will take the honours in the B class, ahead of Wolfgang Triller and Jorn Schmidt-Stade, that we'll see up there on the podium in the separately classified B category of the Porsche Carrera Cup Deutschland. So Thomas Preining then in car number 2 in the final race takes his first win of the season.
Really good. I mean, this performance was incredible. Really perfect race from the beginning till the end, getting the first position after the start and handling the pressure of Dennis Olsen all the time. So really good race from the Porsche Junior.
So the Olsen family pretty happy then. It's been a very, very good weekend, hasn't it? A very good weekend for them. So checkered flag down then. And that's it, the last race in the book for 2017. And there's super slow-mo of Thomas Preining crossing the line. And Franz Conrad, who we talk about a lot during our time on air, as Hans Bernd Camps there with Jörg, also very, very pleased. But Franz Conrad, always smiling. And here, confirmation of the result then. Thomas Preining taking the win from Dennis Olsen, Christian Engelhardt and Nick Jellerly, Zayed Ashkanani, Christopher Zoechling, Mikael Ammermuller, Larry ten Voorde, David Kolkman, Henrik Skoog. And of course, with the results that they've come in, and we're seeing big celebrations from Project One Motorsport. Why, Alex?
Yeah, they became team champions. So final round of the season, everything is done and dusted, everything is decided. So Dennis Olsen takes drivers, A drivers or pro drivers, let's say championship. Rookie champion went on the way of Larry Tenfode, and team championship also on the way of Project One. So good job by everyone.
So a good spread in terms of wins then at season end then, and podiums all to come. And there you can see the Project One team and Hans Bernkamps then, who is congratulated by team members from Conrad Motorsport as well. There's big camaraderie actually in the paddock of the Carrera Cup as we get super slow-mos to the top three now. Taking P3 for Black Falcon, Christian Engelhardt.
Then we see a slow-mo of Dennis Olsen, running in second position. And finally, first place for Thomas Prynin. We see now the slow-mo, having a perfect race from the start till the end. We've seen.
You were saying that Sasha Marson was alongside us in the studio here. Sasha Marson charged with almost developing these junior drivers. He will have, there he is, to the left of our picture there with the Porsche jacket on. There he is, congratulating Thomas Prynin now. Thing I was going to say is, Sasha will have been very, very proud of what Thomas achieved there, because he didn't yield under the pressure, did he? He didn't falter.
Yeah, for sure, he will be really happy with the performance. Both Porsche juniors in the last race of the year, P1 and P2. It's perfect for him. It's the best way for him to finish the season. As I said, he'll still have Super Cup, but I'm sure he's really happy with this performance.
And in the A Championship then, we finish the season thus. Dennis Olsen winning the championship, as he did yesterday. 273 points, Nick Yellerly 237, Mikael Ammermuller just beating Christopher Zoechling by some 6 points, 177 playing 171, and Larry Tenforde rounding out the top 5 in the Drivers' Championship. We would expect to see Larry Tenforde probably with another campaign in Carrera Cup next year, wouldn't we?
Yeah, I guess so. It will be the most. That's a common thing we see now. Oh, 4
that's
points
close.
Different.
4 points between Team Deutsche Post by Project One and Conrad Motorsport. Just 4 points. That is close.
But look at one of the things we're saying before is Team Black Falcon. Really good performance by them for the first year of Carrera Cup. Where we were talking before, it's really difficult, even in front of a team like Leichner Huber or MRS, so teams that have been really, really experienced in the Carrera Cup through many, many years. So also good performance for, let's say, a rookie, full rookie team, and already achieving a few podiums with Christian Engelhardt. Where we see now Franz Conrad congratulating Thomas Prynin.
When I was last at Spa, I was staying in a hotel with lots and lots of racing memorabilia, and was flicking through one of the books in this hotel's library. And there was a fantastic photo of the mustachioed Franz Conrad from his racing days. And the irritating thing is, Franz hasn't aged at all. He still looks the same, doesn't he? Super guy, super guy. And one of those names, of course, so associated with Porsche. So Thomas Prynin then, with the crash helmet off, the drivers will be ushered off up to the podium, of course. And there, Thomas receiving the congratulations. He did a brilliant race. He drove a superb race and didn't suffer the pressure of... You can see Dennis Olsen walking by in the background there. And Thomas Prynin very, very well happy, and deservedly so. Yeah,
we're going to get in cheers by everyone on the Porsche Junior team. Oh, we see Dr. Stefan Walliser. Dr. Walliser on the left side of the picture.
Congratulations.
Jon Schmidt-Stade saying congratulations. So a mix of podiums, of course, up there. And as Carlos Rivas also offers his congratulations as well. Real mix of course, across the A and the B category, because you've got the gentleman drivers, if you like, in the B classification, then the young stars, the young whippersnappers, as I said, like the 2 Porsche juniors, Dennis Olsen and Thomas Prynin, making their way onto the podium right now. It will be Burkhard Bechtel that will be inviting the drivers to make their way onto the podium. It's good for Conrad Motorsport, as P1 goes the way of Thomas Prynin. P2 is Dennis Olsen, and P3 is Christian Engelhardt. So Conrad Motorsport P1 and P2. National anthem plays out then for Thomas Preining. Trophy presentation time. Of course, you've stood up there on the podium here at Hockenheim, and of course it's elevated. Actually, have you stood on the podium at Hockenheim, Alex Torrell, in any category that you've been in? Thomas Preining collects the winner's trophy.
Don't remember.
You know, I think the answer is a no.
I think here, no, I've never been here on the podium.
Yeah,
I mean, I've been racing here only 2 times, but...
Oh, okay. Trophy presentation to Dennis Olsen then. He, of course, sealed the championship yesterday. I had a chat with him in the paddock yesterday, and he was... he's a real cool guy, isn't he? Do you know what I mean? And nothing seems to faze him at all, and he was not perhaps as exuberant as I expected him to be in terms of him winning the championship, but delighted nonetheless. And Christian Engelhardt, I'll tell you what, if you... had to have a trophy cabinet, Christian Engelhardt's will be full and full and full. He's seemingly been racing for years and years and years and always been a race winner. It's P3 today, but nonetheless, it's another trophy to add to the burgeoning Engelhardt cabinet.
Yeah, and it's quite interesting because 2 years ago I was here. I think he was announcing his retirement or he was not racing anymore. And
really? I never knew that.
Yeah, he was. I remember he was talking on the Porsche hospitality. He was telling to me, yeah, I think I have my son yet. He's coming and everything. I will back up a little bit. Don't do so many racing and stuff. And because he's an engineer.
Yes.
So look at him now. He's Long Pond racing for Lamborghini now, Porsche
absolutely.
here. So it's a little bit everywhere.
Of course, he's been racing with his former teammate in Carrera Cup, Rolf Nijken, in, as you say, in GT racing, and having some success this year. He is, as I said right at the beginning of the program, if you know, as a team boss, you were looking for a safe pair of hands to put into a car, Christian Engelhardt might well be one of your choices. So they all get together for the photographs then. The champagne has been sprayed on the podium. That was the A podium, which featured Thomas Preining, Dennis Olsen and Christian Engelhardt. And we have the B podium, if you like to come, for Carlos Rivas, Wolfgang Triller and Jorn Schmidt-Stade. So off they go then. Well done. And it is the turn of the B classification from Thomas Preining then, really getting mullered there from Dennis Olsen. You might need a shower now, friend. And Franz Conrad enjoying every single moment of it as well. He never ever loses his enthusiasm, does he?
No, I mean, it's been many, many years in this business. You know how it works. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. And yeah, in the last year, he's been pretty successful, and he's enjoying these moments. And he's also been a racing driver himself as well, so he knows how everything works. You can win and lose so fast. So now we see the B drivers getting ready for their podium.
Come on, Wolfgang. Wolfgang Triller bespectacled then. He, of course, is the B-class champion. And he actually won that, of course, at the Sachsenring a few weeks ago. Carlos Rivas then on the top step. Wolfgang Triller, step 2, and Jorn Schmidt-Stade, step 3. Here comes the national anthem. trophy presentations. This time, though, for the B classification in the Carrera Cup Deutschland. And Carlos Rivas then on the top step of the podium collects his trophy. Really rather nice trophies, I think, this weekend.
Yeah, they're pretty big, pretty shiny.
You like big and shiny, don't you?
I always like this. The bigger and the shinier it can be.
At breakfast this morning, he went for the biggest, shiniest bowl that he could find.
Yeah.
Wolfgang Triller then receives his trophy for P2. Always with the baseball cap, always with the sunglasses. And Jon Schmidt-Stade then will receive the P3 trophy. Second time he's been on the podium this weekend as well. So rounding out a very, very nice year in the B class of the Porsche Carrera Cup Deutschland. Photographs to be taken, then the champagne to be sprayed, of course. And Wolfgang Triller is going to win that race, I think. No. Come on, chaps. Photos first. Had a lot of fun with Wolfgang Triller and also Wolf Natan in Porsche hospitality over the course of the season. They're good. They're good. Oh, come on, he's saying, look, Triller just wants to get on the champagne, doesn't he? And Carlos Rivas is going to be quickest. No, it's Jon Schmidt-Stade who does it quicker than anybody else. So the champagne shower then from the final podium of the Carrera Cup 2017, the Porsche Carrera Cup Deutschland. And great enjoyment by all those B-class drivers up there on the podium. What a fantastic season it has been, and so looking forward to season 2018. Bye-bye from Alex and me.